police department does its job and properly investigates the shooting and finds the one who pulled the trigger. And we will not be silent and we will not be quiet until that due diligence is done. And so I simply want to cede the space to her, and we are all here in support of her. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for everyone who came today. A few weeks ago, I stood before the public and I shared a story that no mother should ever have to tell. I spoke about a bullet that shattered through my vehicle on I-35 and struck the exact seat where my son was supposed to be sitting moments earlier. And I spoke to you all about that trauma of realizing how close I came to losing my child that day. But today I'm standing here for a different reason. I'm standing here because despite the seriousness of what happened and despite the evidence that exists and despite the fear that my family continues to live with every single day, we are still waiting for answers. And I find myself wondering whether I was being targeted, whether my child was the intended victim for this shooting, and whether anyone would take what happened to me seriously. And for weeks, I've lived with these questions that no parents should have to carry. And I keep wondering why someone fired into my vehicle. I wondered if I was the target, my son, and I wondered why, after surviving something that could have taken my life or my child's life, I still have to fight so hard just to be taken seriously. No family should have to beg for answers after they get shot at. And no parent should be left wondering whether the person who pulled the trigger is still out there, and those who are responsible for investigating are still choosing to remain silent. When I first reported the shooting, I was told that it could not possibly have been targeted, as you all heard in the recording last time. I was told it was probably some idiot randomly shooting a gun. I was told that because it happened during a storm on a highway from a moving vehicle, that it was essentially the perfect crime. And I was told that they would probably never find the person who did it. What I was not told was what steps would actually be taken to investigate. What businesses would be contacted for footage? What witnesses were identified? What evidence was collected? What leads were pursued? What investigative resources were assigned? And what exactly has been done since this targeted shooting has taken place? The reason I'm standing here today is because, like Imam Omar said, I should not be holding a press conference to get answers about a bullet that was fired into my vehicle. These are basic questions, and weeks later, neither I nor the public have received meaningful answers. And that should concern every single person, regardless of who they are. Because if someone can fire a bullet into a civilian vehicle on a major Dallas highway in broad daylight, and the response is indifference, what message does that exactly send? And if a visibly Muslim woman who wears a hijab and advocates for Palestine, for a genocide that is being committed on our tax dollars, can be told immediately that this could not have been a targeted attack when I went to the police, before any investigation took place, what message does that send to people? I cannot ignore the possibility that this violence occurred in a climate where people like me and others and everyone standing behind me and around me today are demonized and targeted for speaking the truth. If a mother can come forward publicly after nearly losing her child and still struggle to get answers, what message is that sending? And what has made this process even more troubling is that I have learned information about my own case through the media that was never communicated to me directly. After our first press conference, Dallas police told members of the press that this case was classified as deadly conduct and that the investigation was ongoing. I was never told that information. So just take a moment to think about that the victim in this case was not informed, yet that information was provided to the media. So how am I supposed to have confidence in this so-called process when I'm learning critical details about my case from news reports instead of the department that's investigating it? No victim should have to learn details about their own case from the news. If this case was serious to be classified as deadly conduct, then it is serious enough to warrant transparency. If the investigation is ongoing, what investigative steps are being taken, and why is this information communicated publicly before it's communicated to the person whose vehicle was struck by a bullet? To Dallas police, you told the public that this investigation is ongoing, and we are here today to make sure that those words actually mean something. Because an ongoing investigation cannot simply mean a file that is sitting on a desk while a family waits for answers. We are not here today asking for any kind of special treatment. We are asking you for the bare minimum. We are asking for a serious investigation. We are asking for transparency. We are asking for accountability. And we are asking for Dallas police to treat this case with the urgency that it deserves, because every single day that passes without answers is another day that the person responsible for almost taking my life and my child's life remains free. And every single day that passes without answers is another day that my family lives with uncertainty. And every day that passes without answers, public trust is eroded from the police, and that is something that is not new to anyone in this country. If this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. If someone can fire a bullet into a civilian vehicle on one of the busiest highways in Texas, and there's no urgency, no transparency, then every person driving these roads in Dallas should be concerned. Because this isn't just about my family anymore. This is about whether the public can trust that when a violent crime occurs, will it be taken seriously? This is about whether a visibly Muslim woman can report being shot at and expect a fair investigation instead of assumptions and dismissals. And this is about whether we are willing to accept a standard where a family waits weeks and weeks for answers while learning critical details about their own case from the news. And I refuse to accept that standard. My family refuses to accept that standard, and this community refuses to accept that standard. So to Dallas police, we are not going away. We will continue to ask questions, we will continue to demand answers, and we will continue showing up until this case receives the investigation, transparency, accountability that it deserves. Thank you.
Saba had let me know about this shooting taking place a few days after. I was able to contact businesses that were in the vicinity of where the shooting took place on I-35, driving northbound near Children's Hospital, if you guys know the area, over by Cavender's Boot Shop. I had about a week off from where this shooting took place, so I wasn't necessarily super optimistic that I was going to be able to find any footage. I'd asked about 10 businesses in the vicinity, including Cavender's, including Bank of America, the Hilton. Two very likely candidates for footage were Dallas HHS and Friendly Chevrolet. Now, Dallas HHS, I'd asked the workers in the building who runs their security. They have a 360 mounted camera at the door, the front door of their building that faces directly toward the highway. Nobody who worked in this building knew who was working security. Come to find out, Dallas County Sheriffs run security at Dallas HHS. I don't know if Dallas PD ever contacted Dallas County Sheriffs for possible footage, but it seems unlikely, as this seemed like news to everyone that I spoke to that day. Friendly Chevrolet, the other likely candidate, unfortunately was not able to provide us footage because the camera that they use, which, by the way, that they have frequently shared footage from with Dallas PD on collisions, people getting hit on the highway, was unfortunately aimed down at the time that the shooting took place. However, what was more troubling and more concerning to me was that none of these businesses acted as though they knew what I was talking about. And when I asked them if they knew what I was talking about, if they'd ever heard anything about this shooting, they had not. If Dallas PD is saying that they're doing a thorough investigation, pardon me, I just don't believe that at all. I just simply think that that is just blatantly untrue. I think that Saba is a very, very important member of this community. She has said very inflammatory things in the views of people who are supportive of genocide, who are supportive of apartheid, and that makes her a target. I can't say with certainty that Saba was targeted by somebody, but I do know that it is a marked and strong possibility. Even with the rampant Islamophobia that is occurring in Dallas and all around the country today, I think that it is very, very important to take every single crime such as this seriously. And the police, in my experience overall as a criminal justice reporter, has never ever taken crimes that affect a small portion of the population seriously. So those are my gleanings. You know, this is somebody that was shot at on the highway from a car that was at an adjoining lane, out the driver's seat, with what seemed to be a handgun. This is terrifying. If she had taken her child with her that day, then her child would very likely be dead. This is serious. And I don't think that we should need to have a press conference outside of the headquarters to be able to convey this. So that's my 2 cents. I don't really have any more to say. Just justice for Saba Mousavi, and thank you guys.
My name is Dylan Ahmadi, and as I was introduced, I'm an Iranian-American political organizer with Revolutionary Front. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with a story before I get into the main meat and potatoes of what I'm here to talk about. So at last year's People's Conference for Palestine, I recall a moment that really struck with me. And it wasn't actually at the conference itself. It was actually not long after we arrived to the city of Detroit. We landed from the flight and got back from the bus. We're on the way to the hotels. And I'm walking back with a few of the sisters from PYM. And one of them answers their phone, and they're speaking Mousavi, and a man is walking by, and he starts screaming at her, starts yelling, a familiar refrain, I'm sure for many of you, speak English, this is America, right? And then she just yells something back, kind of like, I'll say whatever I want, I was born here, something like that. It was a quick interaction, and I remember I was really kind of stunned by this interaction. So I was pretty upset, and I turned to her and I was like, kind of like, does this happen like a lot? What happened? She kind of just shrugged it off. And just almost as if this was like a semi-regular occurrence, or at least like as though this was just kind of like a thing that just happens, and that made me even more upset. So it is a blight upon this nation. that this country has produced a society that has deemed such behavior acceptable or normal, unavoidable. That there is no accountability for treating people in such a way. There is nothing normal about the way in which Muslims, particularly Muslim women, are treated in this country. It is abnormal, in fact, that kind of behavior in which our women are expected to endure in this society. And this behavior didn't just materialize out of thin air. It's not an accident. Islamophobia is not some unique phenomena that just it happened to exist on accident. Rather, it materialized through sustained and intentional propaganda against our community by those who would wish us harm for geopolitical reasons, and in some cases, because we were deemed a useful scapegoat for other problems entirely unrelated. This propaganda seeks to blame us for their own insecurities, to project their own greatest fears onto us, to imagine that we would do to them what they would only do to us if only they had, all of the power. The truth of the matter is that the impotent reactionaries of this country are spending their days fighting the shadows of their own imagination. The enemies exist exclusively in the confines of their own mind. And while we are nothing more than their neighbors, their delusions are successful in causing immense, immeasurable harm to our own communities, both at home and abroad. The geopolitical realities imposed by imperialist conquest create the necessities of spreading Islamophobic narratives, such that popular consent for extractivist wars, such as the wars that we see currently today, the wars in the past in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, popular consent must be manufactured. It has to be manufactured through media narratives. There must be a bad guy for which conflict must be justified. Otherwise, it turns out you're just murdering a bunch of children for no reason. So let's look at the current war in West Asia. I say West Asia because it turns out there are many nations that are currently embroiled in war. So after engaging in 100 days, actually 108 days to be specific, of unprovoked war against the Iranian people, the United States president has finally agreed to the first stage, the initial stage, of an agreement that would end all military hostilities between all parties. So what have we learned from this exercise in futility? What have we gained? Over 7,500 martyrs from Iran, from Lebanon, from Iraq. During these 108 days, the American imperialists and their Zionist lackeys have brutalized the Iranian nation. They have destroyed 90,000 homes. They have damaged 300 medical facilities. They have eviscerated 750 schools, and they have desecrated 6 cultural heritage sites. The damage has been even more severe in Lebanon. They have displaced over 1.2 million people. They have occupied much of the land south of the Litani River. They have destroyed nearly all of the bridges that connect the south with the north. So although the imperialists have been able to relentlessly bomb the Iranian people for the past 108 days, they have never come close to defeating their will, their steadfast commitment to resist the injustice of foreign domination, nor have they been successful in getting the Iranian people to abandon their commitment to the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. So why is this? How can our people face an enemy with cruelty beyond limits and remain unfazed in their conviction? The truth is that we refuse to be defined by our trauma, to give our oppressors the opportunity to colonize even a single inch of our minds. Our people are not victims, desperately looking for a savior to free them. In response to the near constant provocations and aggressions by the foreign oppressor, our peoples have chosen the honorable path of resistance. And how can one pity those who struggle against injustice, the most beloved people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can we pity, or rather, what use would they have for our pity? Can their pity be used to rebuild their homes, their schools, their hospitals? Can they use their pity to feed their children? Can they use their pity to fight their oppressors? Instead, we should offer them something that is actually useful. Our solidarity, our love, our commitment. The people of West Asia and the Levant demand the right to self-determination and dignity, and it is up to us to do everything within our power to hinder the imperialist war machine so that we can live to see the day where our region is truly free and independent of Western domination. And in doing so, where we can live lives free of oppression at home. Justice for Saba and glory to our martyrs. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you all for being here. It's great to see so many familiar faces. This is really who our community is, the people that are here today. I wanted to just speak very briefly to provide some information that was communicated to me from the attorney that is overseeing communication between Sabah and DPD, just so that we can all get some intel on how this communication process has been with Dallas Police. A few of the things that she shared with me include that the DPD initially refused an investigation, that they failed to retrieve the bullet, and they never explained why they never attempted to retrieve the bullet. They sent a detective who is not involved in the alleged investigation to request the bullet and to receive it. They won't tell Sabah or her attorney who the lead detective is on this case. And they've been providing very few updates. And when they are providing updates at all, it's to give no information, and it's after being prompted several times by the attorney for information. And frankly, from the view of the attorney, and just like Sam just said before me, we really have no reason to think that there is an investigation going on at all. I wanted to share this information with you all today so that we can keep that in mind when we hear news about the increasing budget for the DPD. The budget for Dallas Police Department is $5.2 billion. That's our taxpayer dollars. And we've seen Dallas police send hundreds of police officers to our protests. We've seen them harass us at our protests. We've seen them arrest our Black and Brown community members. And recently, we've all heard that Dallas PD will be collaborating with ICE to arrest folks and give them over to be treated inhumanely in what they call ICE detention facilities, but we know they're nothing more than dungeons. I have a question for Dallas PD and for the city. Is that where our tax dollars should be going? I'll leave us all with this today, that we are not surprised to be failed as a community by Dallas police. In fact, for some of us, maybe we were anticipating this. But still, there's time for them to do the right thing in this case and to do a real investigation like they're saying they are. Again, thank you all for being here.